There's so much to say about the teachers, okay? These people are not acceptable to be given the serious job of educating our children, okay? And why do I say that? Number one, the teachers' unions, of course, are abhorrent. They blocked even the idea of them teaching remotely. I put forth school guidelines in the White House. One of the first things I did in the first week of August, I said, okay, what am I going to do here? I got there July 31st. I said, I'm going to go for low-hanging fruit. What's the low-hanging fruit? Well, healthy children have minuscule risk. Teachers are not at significant risk. That we need to educate our children. There's nothing more important as a society than educating our children. So we need to open the schools. And so I said, okay, let's put together an event. We put together an event in the White House, and it's on C-SPAN. People can look at this. The president, the vice president, and myself, Betsy DeVos, Secretary of Education at the time. And we invited and had in this event in the White House experts in education, but we had parents of special needs kids. We had nurses, we had school officials, and we talked about the importance of opening schools. There is nothing more important. By the way, this is August of 2020. The CDC had already put forth the data. The evidence was there that, number one, it's extremely harmful on the learning loss side to lose in-person schools, and much worse for minorities and poor children. I mean, are we not a society that says we care about poor kids? So massive learning losses, the greatest losses in learning in the history of the assessments. But secondly, there was an explosion of psychiatric illness in teenagers and college kids from the isolation, not the virus. Explosion of self-harms, visits to doctors. What is that? That's teenagers putting out cigarettes on their skin, slashing their wrists because of the isolation, school closures. Massive explosion in drug abuse, substance use in teenagers. Suicidal ideation in teenage girls. Massive increase. During the isolation of school closures. 1 in 4 college-age kids in the United States, the CDC reported in July of 2020, 1 of 4 college-age kids thought of killing himself. So, the teachers, they broke every ethical and moral responsibility they had to teach our kids. They were offered opportunities to stay home if they were afraid, if they were high risk. Teach from a distance, but you don't keep the kids out of school. And they did.
The union bosses
And
refused.
the union bosses. Well, okay, there's 2 sides to it. One is that's true. It's the union bosses that advocated not just 2020, by the way, right. 2021, 2022.
Which is 2 years after you all had all the data. They kept us out of school.
Absolutely. In California, by the way, our state, Governor Newsom's state, ranked dead last in percent of schools that were open. In fact, in 2020, 2021, something like 15% of school children had in-person schools in California. In Florida, by the way, 100% of schools were opened in person for the 2020-2021 year. Similar state, by the way, just completely different response, different governor, et cetera. So the second part that I want to mention, it wasn't just the teachers' unions, in my view. And I hate to insult teachers, but the reality is the studies shown in 2020, they asked professions, are you seriously afraid of getting COVID at work? Teachers were severe fear versus not big deal, 5-1, something like this. Every other career was the opposite. Teachers were uniquely afraid. Are these people even thinking?
Well,
I don't understand this.
Teachers are not allowed to think. The union bosses think for the teachers.
But these are the people we've entrusted to teach our children. They have disqualified themselves by being irrational
Yeah.
and by sacrificing children for their benefit.